Hello and welcome to the Rocket Buzz with Next Horizons Spaceflight.
Hi, my name's Matthew Jordan. I'm a writer with Next Horizons Spaceflight, and we are here with the Rocket Buzz. I'm here with Mr. Matt Cutshaw. Everybody say hi.
Go on, everybody.
We also have Mr. Stephen Kegel.
Jeff who?
All right, that's our founder crew. And now on to our photographers. We have Mr. Kyle Montgomery.
Hello.
Mr. Derek Wise.
Welcome.
And you guys missed him last week, but he is finally here, Mr. Zach Shaw.
Howdy, howdy.
And we are Next Horizons Spaceflight. We're here to talk about the news, so let's get started with the news. This week we did have a launch. Turksat 5 Alpha or 5A launched. Sorry, I dropped my ball. It launched at 2:15 UTC from Cape Canaveral on January 8th. And that was placed in geosynchronous orbit, 31 degrees east. And we do have some great photos that were taken by our crew at the launch. Do we have those to pull up?
Yes.
Excellent.
Right now.
Didn't even have that up. Cool. So we have, who took this photo?
This one is one of mine.
Excellent. Mr. Wise, tell us about this photo.
Not much to say. One of my remote shots. I got lots of shots from the Falcon 9 as it left Space Launch Complex 40. And it was great watching all the smoke clear. Left those cameras out overnight, and we had a little bit of a rain shower afterwards, but it was all clear up to and during the launch. So it was beautiful. Got some great shots.
It was a beautiful launch from here as well, my man. 50 miles away, it still looks bright and beautiful. So, excellent. Do we have any other photos from the shot, or are we going to go straight into the video here?
Oh, there's a video. I mean, I can play it.
Absolutely. Go for it, dude.
Is there audio on this? I didn't even play it.
Go ahead and mute it.
Mute. Oh, it looks like full screen.
Yeah, so this one is actually from an iPhone, a remote iPhone I left at the pad filming at 240 frames a second. So I put it right near the flame trench. And so I knew it was going to get covered with smoke pretty quickly, and it sure did, but I was happy. If you want to go back earlier in the shot, you can actually see as it just starts to ignite and the sound suppression system is being all the water and smoke is moving. Yeah, so
smoking. All right.
And watch the as it just starts to lift off, and it really you can see just how bright these rockets are in this shot because it completely overwhelms that iPhone camera. And it really has to compensate.
The consensus from this launch was everybody's shots were kind of more or less surrounded by smoke. I don't know what it was about this particular launch that just the smoke from flame trench just engulfed everybody's gear.
Yeah, I got shots of the sand flying off even. Like, there was sand on my gear.
I'm curious if maybe it was because of the temperature. Maybe it's because it was cooler than what it would normally be. And maybe that would maybe cause the
cooler
smoke
and possibly also it's less moist now because it's cooler. Yeah. So, the sand is able to fly further when it's not, stuck together or weighed down by moisture. Absolutely beautiful pictures and videos. You guys always do a bang up job. So we do appreciate you. All right. And this was a reusable rocket. This was a Falcon 9. So we do have some photos from the booster return, which occurred. Who's got the date on that?
It hasn't yet.
We don't.
Has not yet. It's coming up.
We've had the fairings come back.
The fairings came back. Okay. Excellent. Do we have some fairing pictures?
And that was not an entirely successful fairing return. Notably,
they'll be in my gallery.
No, I did see the tweets going back and forth saying that only Miss Chief was going to try to catch.
Now, both of them, both fairings came back. There's only one boat out there, but
Okay.
one of the fairings was damaged, and one of them
No, both
appears
fairing catchers were out there.
They were both out there?
Yeah.
I believe they
Okay.
were both
Twins for the
out there,
first
but
time in a
only
while since they
one
broke
was
the one.
going to actually attempt to recover.
All right.
Kyle, you said they were in your galleries?
Yeah, if you just go to
Fairings?
galleries, it's in the Turksat gallery.
Oh,
Yeah,
in
well-
Turks, right.
One of the fairings seemed to be have come back whole, and the other one looks like just the very tip of the fairing got broken off. So I'm curious as to how that happened. But
Towards the end, and then
just like Elon had stated, when these fairings come back, when
Very
they
grainy.
come back whole, then it's a pallet of money. It basically is what
Yeah.
it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's the goal.
That's
is
millions of dollars
reusability.
they don't have to spend again.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what this is all about, and what Elon's all about is dropping the cost of space launch, and part of that is reusing as much as possible. They've, theorized being able to reuse a second stage. They haven't actually tried it yet, but they would like to one day be able to reuse a second stage, or at least that was the idea until Starship rolled around. Now with Starship, they just reuse the whole thing.
Now, something
At
to
least that's
note
what
here
they're
with Tesla and SpaceX now, since the last show, Elon is now the richest man in the world.
That is very true. I did hear about that.
Lucky him.
Lucky him.
Reusability has a lot to do with that, because if you're
It
not
absolutely
having to
does.
fork out millions upon millions of dollars, that's going to help save the company a lot of money. You know what I mean? So
When he saw the article or his bank account that he was the richest, is what he said.
Jeff who?
Jeff who?
Jeff who? That's beautiful.
Jeff who?
All right. Now, I also in the news this week we had the Northrop Grumman Cygnus SS Chawla left the space station on January 6th, and it's now on its 20-day extended mission. Now, the Cygnus are not a reusable craft, so they've designed this mission, this extended mission, to study the effects of fire in spaceflight. And we do have an interesting video I sent Mr. Keegs here of what this mission is all about. The mission is called Sapphire. They're currently on the 5th iteration of this extended mission. It was a YouTube video, my man.
There was a YouTube? I got the
Yes.
article.
I sent you a YouTube video. I promise.
Well, all right. Let me.
Is
search
it
for
2 tabs over? The Nest
It's
Space
probably
Craft
it went.
Fire Safety?
You had it on.
Was he?
Start you that one right there.
All right.
All right, so it doesn't look all that exciting, but this is actually material they're burning in space. They don't really know a lot about how fire reacts in zero gravity because no one wants to set fire to anything in zero gravity and put people at risk. So
Okay,
they've designed this extended mission on a capsule that's going to burn up in the atmosphere to essentially use video to monitor fires that they set remotely inside the capsule. So I think this is pretty cool. It's extending safety, and it's extending just our knowledge of what happens in space and what dangerous things can happen and how to not only prevent a fire, but how to combat a fire. So I think the Sapphire experiment's pretty cool and a good way to get some more use out of one of those non-reusable items that are sent into space.
Yeah, because on the space station, they're not dealing with air currents in the same way that we are down here because without having, in the effects of microgravity, they're not dealing with that hot air rising away, bringing in the new air. It's really pooling up. And so that's why there are some cool videos of more point flames, and they really form a ball versus the style of flame that we're used to.
Absolutely.
And there's not studying that sort of stuff down here really isn't practical.
I mean, you if you study it down here, even in a vacuum chamber, you're still have the effect of gravity on whatever fire. Having the ability to actually study how fire acts in space without having to study its effects as a postmortem on a disaster or a potential disaster like what happened on Mir. I mean, it's very useful. It's pragmatic to think about those things ahead of time. And science is moving in the right direction by doing that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
All right. So that concludes, I believe, the news for the week. Anybody got anything to add for news for this week?
This past week, we've pretty
This
much
week
gone
that we
over a
are
lot
just
of it.
finishing right now, we just went
Yeah.
over pretty much all of it.
Now, we do have more. We have a lot of stuff upcoming, though, to look forward to.
Yes, there is quite a bit upcoming. All right, Derek, go ahead and lead us off since I don't have a list sitting in front of me of what's coming up this week.
Now, first of all, we have the return of the Dragon capsule from CRS 21. So that's something good to look forward to. So there was a little bit of speculation as far as where it's splashing down, if there was a delay, because apparently the notice to airmen for multiple of those locations was withdrawn, and now it's looking like they're targeting a Daytona landing. And now it is notable compared with the last splashdown with Demo 2, there were a lot of boaters out around there. So I think potentially with this splashdown, but especially in the future when we actually get to the splashdown for Crew 1, there'll be a lot more management as far as
making sure that doesn't happen. We don't want that to happen ever again.
Absolutely.
That was absolutely that was a travesty. It should never have occurred. And
because
so we just don't want this to occur.
While in this specific capsule there is not crew, there is still valuable cargo being brought back from the space station. That's one of the unique capabilities of the Dragon capsule, is being able to bring stuff both to and back from the space station. So we're looking at, I believe it is a 9 p.m. splashdown.
That's
Eastern time, and off the coast of Daytona, and then we can look forward to any extremely time-sensitive gear potentially being flown via helicopter back, and then after that, it'll be brought back to the military port here here by Cape Canaveral, and so we're most likely going to be looking at a daytime. It'll be reaching here the next morning sometime. So
early the mid-morning, most likely.
Mid-morning. So the best place to catch an eye on that will probably be Jetty Park. If you want
Hopefully they're open by the time they get in.
So long as it is open by the time they arrive, Jetty Park will have a great view as it turns in. You're not going to be able to just pull up alongside the port. Your two options are basically Jetty Park or Freddie Patrick Boat Ramp. That does have a small area you're able to see it before it goes in, though. To see it the longest, definitely Jetty Park.
I actually have a whole entire guide on how to view port stuff, so...
Absolutely. So take a look at what's your name for that guide officially?
The Port Stalking Guide.
The Port Stalking Guide. Absolutely. So
it's just one of the links on my website.
It's definitely worth taking a look at to figure out exactly where you want to go for each of these boat events, whether it is a booster return, whether it is the fairing return, whether it is a Dragon capsule return.
Excellent. All right. So also upcoming this week on January 13th, we have Launcher 1, which is going to be happening out in Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. And that is basically it's a rocket being launched off of a 747, and it's going to place, let me see what we got here, 14 CubeSats in orbit for NASA field centers, U.S. educational institutions, and some laboratories. And the name of that project is called Ilana. And this is Ilana 20. On January 16th, we do have an Electron launch leaving from New Zealand, and that one's called Another One Leaves the Crust. And they are
Great
going
name.
to be, I love
I love it. They have some fantastic names. It's one thing that they are really special for by naming all their missions.
If you can't appreciate Rocket Lab just for their names alone, you have no taste.
Absolutely. And now they're getting into reusability. You have to love them. You absolutely have to love Rocket Lab.
Absolutely.
I bet they're naming individual boosters.
I'm assuming they have. Like,
I'd be shocked if they don't, considering how they name missions.
Oh, they have to. I bet they name parts. I name parts.
We're not getting any C-1051s or anything like that. We're probably getting real names.
Oh, absolutely too. All right. So that one is happening on January 16th, and we'll actually have some coverage of that. That's going to be happening, and it's a small communication satellite for OHB Group of Germany. January 17th, we do have a Starlink launch scheduled for launch. LC-39A.
Another
right here.
60
Now
satellites.
we haven't had many of these launches, so you might not know much about these satellites.
Yeah, Starlinks.
It's
I've
been a
never
while
heard
since
of
we've
them.
talked about this sort of satellite. They're
Yeah,
pretty rare.
What's up with
They're only
these
200 in
Starlinks?
orbit.
What is Starlink? This is launch number 16 of the version 1.0 satellites. So obviously there are quite a few of these already up there. That's all we talked about, I think, in 2020. Were there any other kind of launches? I don't remember.
Starlink ate up the most of those.
Yeah, that was the majority.
It
Didn't they
was
launch these
Starlink or
people at
one of
one
the
point?
crude ones. That's it.
They really did suck the oxygen out of the atmosphere when it comes to stuff happening in space. Like,
Hey, and they're going to be doing a whole lot more of that this year. We have so many launches to look forward to.
yes, and it's a majority of SpaceX. It's like I don't want to be that SpaceX fanboy, and trust me, I love SpaceX, but I don't want to be that fanboy doing nothing but reporting about SpaceX. But when they're the only ones doing anything, it's really hard to stay away from just talking about SpaceX all the time.
Absolutely. This could be a SpaceX show, and we
Yeah, really,
what would change? Not much.
Not
Every
much.
once in a while, a show would change.
yeah,
but,
every now and again. Excellent.
30
Yeah,
out
so-
of my 43 launches I've seen were Falcons.
Ugh.
Yeah, so we aren't going to...
Like, I've
It's
seen
worth
13
noting that-
non-Falcons. That's it.
It's a reliable rocket.
It is a reliable rocket. I was talking to my mom about that today. I was like, the last major incident that they had with a Falcon that was non-intentional was in 2017. So they've got a pretty long record and a lot of launches under their belt since then. I told my mom it's a horrible thing that I'm not excited about Falcon 9 launches anymore.
And even less so now, because we can't, without having remotes for Starlink launches, we're a little bit more limited as far as content and creativity there. But they're launches,
absolutely.
and we cannot complain about the number of launches we are getting. It is
we
amazing.
are blessed with the riches of the spaceflight community here, where we are just getting so many launches that it has become boring to some of us.
Absolutely.
It's just another Falcon 9. There's people on that one. Okay, that makes it a little interesting, but only for the first 4 minutes.
Now, speaking of Starlinks, there are Starlinks on a different mission coming up. That
There
Transporter
are.
1.
Yeah, Transporter
So-
1, which is not technically next week, but it is just a couple days after, so we'll extend that out. We do have Transporter 1 coming up on the 21st, and that's coming out of Slick 40 over at Cape Canaveral. That's going to be scheduled for 9:24 Eastern.
Now,
And-
interestingly, I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
So this is going to be another polar launch. So
Mhm.
the last one of these we had was SAOCOM. And before that, we were looking back in late 60s, early 70s. I forget the exact date, but it is before that, it was years. And so now we're getting polar launches. We're going to have 2 Starlink satellites. It was just yesterday that I believe the FCC did their approval for a polar orbit of Starlink satellites. So they are throwing 2 of those on there. And we are going to have the first booster landing in that southern corridor, which is really exciting because of course, SAOCOM was a return to launch site. And as much as we love those, it's pretty cool that we have the drone ships heading down south, and they're going to be landing. They're going to be landing down there now.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see. I'm wondering when they're going to be buying any more drone ships. Like they need more drone ships, and they're going
A
to.
shortfall of gravitas might be somewhere.
And that's definitely going to be the name too. I can't wait.
It's supposedly already in construction.
Yeah, he's been talking about it for years, but I haven't seen it yet.
Elon's such a tease.
He is. He's such a tease.
Yeah, Michael's saying, who's going to Miami? We were actually talking about that. Like, who wants to go to Miami, get a boat, see how close you can get with, of course, abiding by all their exclusion areas and everything, just to see. Because it's not too far offshore, to be quite honest.
The issue with that is the exclusion zone is about 20 miles from the outside to the center, so it's not any closer than most land launches. So like it's almost not worth it. Besides the fact that it's a barge.
Yeah, you're really not gonna be. If you do that, you're really not gonna be close. You're not gonna have a great
Yeah,
view
the cost
by any
isn't probably
means.
worth it. If you
But
get within 5 miles, I would say it'd be worth it. But like,
you're pretty
No.
limited as far as viewing it, even though it is much closer to land.
Absolutely. So that's next week in spaceflight. All right. What's the next segment here? I have it written down.
Well,
Hey,
we
look at
did
that.
have some DARPA satellites that were
Oh
dropped.
yeah.
That's no fun.
And-
I believe we have an article on that.
I love the name of the article that
They
I
were
read
damaged.
on
That
Sarah
is
Data.
not great.
No,
so-
absolutely no. They dropped 2 of their satellites here, the Mandrake 1 and 2 satellites. And the article I'm referencing here is by a website called Sarah Data, and the the name of the article is "Oops, Butterfingers," which I found hilarious. They dropped 2 Mandrake satellites during processing on January 4th.
So it looks like they're swapping
see.
in the Starlinks to kind of take
Yeah,
the place.
that's kind of what
and
makes
that's
them-
happening now, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
They had to get the permission to actually put Starlinks in the polar orbit because that was planned for maybe another year down the line. So this was kind of like moving up their time frame, and they had to get FCC clearance for that.
And that's really good because most of them with their low Earth orbit, they have an upper range because but admittedly they are closer together in the more northern and southern areas. They have a dead zone over the poles.
Yeah,
And so this is gonna start to provide some more service to some otherwise unreachable areas.
excellent, and I'm super excited about the fact that the poles are involved. Having been to the North Pole, I know how difficult it is to even get like an iridium call up there. Like you have to schedule it ahead of time. So you have to tell them, hey, we're going to be at this point on this date, and we need a satellite, and they kind of like give you a range of options. So it's especially when you get all the way up at the North Pole, and we were trying to make phone calls home for $30 a minute.
Yes, get Harry Starlink. I think we all want Starlink for some remote access, but some of us
Absolutely.
have greater uses than others.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you this, it'd
Harry
be great for
totally
live
agrees with
streams.
that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's true.
It's good stuff. All right, what do we got up, man? Picks of the week. Anybody got picks of the week they want to share? Nobody. Crickets?
Well, I mean,
Y'all have seen my video, my photos. I mean, I was
Got
really
anything
happy to
outside
get
of
back into
spaceflight that you
launches.
took you'd like to share?
I mean, if anybody's been following any of us on Twitter or the page, they've pretty much seen the pictures. I know we could talk about Starship.
Absolutely. Let's talk about
Yes.
Starship. It was supposed to be doing a hop this weekend, yeah?
It was supposed to, yes. It was
It's really
supposed to be this
supposed to.
weekend.
There was no TAMs. No TAMs. Or road collisions, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've
Could've,
been
but it
it's
didn't.
been doing what Starship does though. And it's been
Mhm.
delaying. But
Yep.
it's still been moving at such a rapid pace, and so I think we can all look forward to that when it actually launches, and once we really get Boca into the regular cycle of launches, that will be absolutely amazing. We've got a static fire tomorrow as we're looking forward to the actual flight. So it's looking like it's moving in. Now, interestingly, Elon Musk on Twitter was talking a little bit about some of the restaurants in that area.
Mm-hmm.
There were some shots going around, aerial shots of, I believe it was Starship Mark II's wings that were, yes, this is a view from S Padre, and there were some aerial views of their restaurant and the reuse of the wings as a sort of cover. And he's been talking for a while about a restaurant on top, and he was jokingly asked he was asked like how people would access it, and he jokingly said with a I believe a catapult and a parachute,
I mean,
so
trebuchets are
that they
better.
would be launched up and land on the roof. And then,
Sounds
of course, he
great.
was like, elevator. But I think that'd be interesting. I think it'd be pretty cool if they had a miniature starship just for the purpose of flying you up onto the roof there to get to the restaurant.
Man,
That's what you use Starhopper for.
$8,000 steak.
Hey, if they charge enough, they could make it work. Hey, at the very least, they could get an elevator designed exactly
look like a
Starship.
Yeah,
They could make an experience out of getting to that restaurant, and I would really look forward to it. And he did say, because people were asking if it was going to be limited to SpaceX employees and guests, and he did say that they're looking to actually genuinely open it to the public to have access, which would be an absolutely amazing experience to be able to go there and see their facility from that close once coronavirus is over and they can actually open it up again.
Bars, rockets, restaurants. What does Elon not have his hand in?
Exactly.
He's the richest man in the world right now.
Yeah,
might as well flaunt it, right?
if they have the elevator powered by a Velociraptor engine, that would be so cool. So wasteful. So wasteful. but
So wasteful.
cool.
It would be the fastest elevator ride of your life. Done.
The most dangerous elevator ride of your lifetime.
I wonder how many cold gas
the most
thrusters it would take to do that.
expensive.
Because like cold gas thrusters aren't that ridiculous of a thing to mount on the side of an elevator.
Now that would be a little bit more realistic, but
Needs
still
some big emergency
absolutely
brakes.
insane.
But if they had it in an open frame, cold gas thrusters on the side, not impossible.
I feel like they might have problems landing on the building, and they might
No.
have
I'm
problems.
just saying, straight up.
What would
rails-
happen if you're
It's like
eating
an elevator
a
on
steak?
rails powered by the cold gas thrusters.
Yeah, you're eating your meal, and then just all of a sudden, the elevator lands next to you from those cold gas thrusters.
Everything,
You know that like
everything's
got a
gone.
Raptor engine.
You know, like the gyro meat, like some types of meat, how they cook them with spinning and they have like a flame. What if the flame came from a raptor?
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
That
There
would,
is-
that
Basically,
would be
like
the
that one
right
episode of
there.
The Mandalorian.
That's how you char everything.
That would be awesome.
It's,
But now we did miss something on the week coming up. So I'm just reading through the NASA website, and they have planned the Green Run Hot Fire for the 17th, or as early as the 17th.
yes,
And that's at
there is-
Stennis, correct? Yeah, that's at Stennis.
Yeah, so we do have that to look forward to. That's really good, because also what happened this week is they have been stacking the boosters. So the clock is now ticking for the flight of Artemis 1. They have, I
15.
believe, what was that, Zach?
I think it's
Year, I
15
think.
months, right?
Yeah, 15 months from when they stacked the first booster together.
Yeah, so we really, it's coming, and they appear to be confident to be able to meet that deadline. So it's happening. We can look forward to SLS. It's so exciting.
I'm looking forward to it. I think
Orange
with
rocket, not
the
bad.
coming administration, with the Biden administration taking over, I think they are going to put the brakes on human flight and possibly push that back to like 2026. I know that with the current administration's plan, that a lot of people, especially in the higher ups, were thinking that it was maybe a little too fast for their liking. There was ample time for testing, but not for the amount of testing they really want to do with a human spaceflight mission going to the moon. So they were thinking, 2024 might be a bit early, but 2026, 2028 is actually a great period to get the amount of testing they want to get in before they do send humans to the moon.
And I hate to be the negative guy here, but the longer it pushes back, the less useful it will be.
Very
And
true.
it's
The
so
less useful and the less
unfortunate.
likely to happen.
Yeah, so I really hope that this pace continues and picks up, and we can really get to crewed space flight on Artemis getting us back to the moon.
Now I will say what I was talking about was the actual boots on the moon portion, putting a person on the moon in 2024. Probably not going to happen under the Biden administration. They really do want to put the brakes on that and allow more time for further data gathering and those kinds of things. They like to proceed with caution. That's kind of a NASA thing anyway. Yep. So that's
they have to be safe about it. That is absolutely essential.
If they want to be really cautious, they could send the capsule up with SLS and then just send Dragon up to meet the capsule up there.
They could do that.
And then just transfer people. Although I'm not sure if they can get EVA suits in a way that like can transfer easily with. Although they could dock theoretically, I think, because they're both designed to dock to Lunar Gateway, so they should be able to send up a docking adapter, and
they would need a spare docking adapter to go up with the Dragon.
Just have SLS do all the heavy work, and
or without an escape tower, they might be able to directly mount the docking adapter on top, pretty much.
That's a true story.
Well, either way, as Starship becomes more and more developed, it's gonna be great to have competition in spaceflight, but it'd be really unfortunate for the billions and billions of dollars to be wasted.
Better fly at least once, goddamn.
And I think, yes, I agree with you, but I can also see it from a perspective of Starship is not a national asset. Starship belongs to a corporation.
Yeah.
There is a need to have a nationally owned, nationally produced, nationally operated cislunar space system. That absolutely there has to be something there. And saying, well, Artemis has taken so long and Orion has taken so long to develop, we have put a whole lot of money into it and we're going to continue to do so, but we are so close to the finish line with Orion and the SLS program and getting us to where it's actually operational that pulling the plug and saying, well, we're not going to use that now. There's these other corporations we could just buy it from. Yes, from an economic standpoint, that's a great thing. But from a national morale standpoint, there does have to be that national asset that is capable of doing those things as well.
Absolutely. I'm definitely in favor of SLS happening in tandem and in cooperation with, I mean, if the lunar starship becomes the lander and like that'll be great. That will be absolutely fantastic. I just really don't want to. I don't want too many delays. I really want to keep up this pace.
I never think they're going to launch a lot of SLSs, but I feel like it's going to be at least one every year, maybe one every other year.
And that's okay because there is access to space without the SLS.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be complete overkill if we sent astronauts like the ISS with that.
No, that
never
is
become a
not
Falcon 9.
what it's never going to.
It's not meant for it. But once we get into the moon,
frequent launches.
I'm looking forward to that a ton.
Getting to the moon, getting the lunar gateway actually constructed, building the lunar gateway, because that's going to be a years-long project. That's going to take a lot of time because it's going to go up in 4 or 5 large chunks, if not more, and that depends on what heavy launches are available.
Now, I will say I'm gonna cut in here real quick. Just looking at this background here right now, I don't know about anybody here or anybody who's watching, but I can't wait for Starship to actually get going and doing what it's doing. Like, my goal for this year is to get over to Texas to see a Starship launch. It's going to be very difficult, feat to accomplish, but eventually I would like to, because if you see anybody's pictures who take pictures of it, especially at sunrise or sunset, those are the most phenomenal pictures you'll ever see. Absolutely fantastic.
It's happening
John
so
Krause
close.
photo here. It's real nice.
Like, you are, of course, kept back. There's like the hard checkpoints, the soft checkpoints, everything. So you're kept back a decent distance for the launches themselves. When it's not launching, it's right there.
Yeah.
Like, you are so close to it. They quite literally drive Starship down the road. Like, it's
that thing is just
mind-blowing
it's a beautiful
how much you can see, and the fact that SpaceX they're making this new rocket out in the open is amazing.
That makes me super happy.
Now we get access here to where we get to remotes and we get to be right up next to it, or we're on base and we have it coming down the road and we got to pull off to the side of the road and it's literally driving right next to you. Yeah, we have that, but not anything like this. Starship is a completely different animal.
Not yet. They do want to launch this from Cape Canaveral as well.
They do because they're still building the mount. Mount, from what I understand, mount construction hasn't really been happening with the mount. But anytime we go over to 39A, we still see that the mount or the flame trench is still there. So
they totally want to replace Falcon 9 with this guy. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
for
I don't think
real,
it's
I don't think it's really designed for satellites payload.
but they can launch 240 Starlink satellites on one of these.
Well, yeah, they could, but
And that's their plan. They want to do that. They want to launch 200 plus Starlink satellites at a time using this rocket so they can prove the reusability of this rocket.
I don't think they'll completely get rid of Falcon 9 because Falcon 9 can do other things too.
Falcon 9
launch
can
a
do other
different
things,
payload.
but if there's not a market for it, they are going to have the market for the larger things, putting pieces of the Lunar Gateway up and doing, cislunar stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at
Yeah.
ULA trying to phase out, the Vulcan going to be replacing Atlas and the Delta Heavy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? We've already here was it last year or the year before we saw the last launch of the Delta Medium. That didn't get launched anymore. You know what I mean? So that's completely phased out. So ULA they just have the Atlas and they have the Heavy, which will be replaced by Vulcan once Vulcan gets going. I think Space is kind of more or less wanting to do the same thing where they want to get rid of Falcon 9, they want to get rid of Falcon Heavy and just focus on just having Starship.
Absolutely. And that's from an economical standpoint for them. That reduces the amount of actual production space they have to use because, there's a lot of production space that has to go into making the stuff just for the Falcon 9 and those Merlin engines and everything. When they don't have to make that anymore, they can replace all that production area with production area for either Starship or for new things, the next thing down the line, whatever's going to replace Starship in 10, 20 years.
It is worth noting that it will be a while until we start really seeing too much more with Starship here because once they got over that initial race to build the mock-ups, it really seems like it's all happening there, and we can look forward to basically a completed version of the rocket eventually working.
Yeah, we're not going to see any of that
It's-
iterative, of that repetitive, iterative advancement here. We're going to see the finished product once they've worked out most of the kinks over in Texas. Now, there's always going to be kinks to work out, but they are going to.
We saw that with Falcon 9 earlier this year with the process of the issues they had with the engine there. They're still making changes as they have to, and they're addressing safety, even though they are now sort of locked down with the Block 5 for the crude rating. They still are making those adjustments as they need to.
Absolutely. And they were allowed to make those adjustments as they need to. I mean, you saw with the lacquer issue, NASA worked hand in hand with them to solve that issue and to make sure that their rockets were going to be safe for the humans. And I think that's what NASA's job should be, not so much putting things into space. And that's always going to be their job, is putting things into space, but not like for commercial purposes. They need to be putting things into space when it comes to exploration and research,
Right.
not like what the shuttle was doing. Oh, we're going to put up communication satellites for all these different companies. That's a bit much, but now we're in a point where the market is there to do it. So NASA doesn't have to. NASA can focus on its original mandate.
And with anything with spaceflight too, whether it's you're covering it like we do, or you're customer payload, or you're building it, you got to be flexible. Flexibility is key. If you are having anything to do with space, you have to have flexibility, because if you don't have flexibility, you're just not going to be. I mean, how many times have we seen where there was a date and that date never gets met? Either it's pushed back because of weather or
It's
hardware
constant.
issues or weather. Exactly. So you have to have
happens all the
flexibility.
time.
Exactly.
And you see with SpaceX that companies that are willing to be flexible are reaping the benefits from that because they're getting discounts because of their flexibility, especially when it comes to what was the company that launched 1 million satellites with SpaceX when they were first starting with the Falcon 9. I can't even remember. It was so long ago, and we've had so many satellites since then. But it was the same company, and you kept hearing the same names for satellites over and over. And it was like, okay, they're launching for this company, this one company, a whole lot. But that company was putting a whole lot of their wealth on the line, proving to SpaceX, and SpaceX paid them back for that when they said, "Hey, you want a discount and you can launch on the third launch of this rocket over here, and it's the first time we're ever going to launch a rocket the third time. You want this discount?" And the company's, "Oh yeah, we'll take that discount and we'll put 2 satellites on it, not just one this time."
Same thing with reusability when that started, and being able to work with the reused rockets is saving everyone money.
Yeah,
and that's fantastic.
They were a game changer. They came in, they started doing the reusability, and all of a sudden, all the launch providers were like, you know what? We kind of see what's going on here. You know what I mean? So now Rocket Lab's talking about one of reusability. You know, even over in Aaron Space, they're wanting to talk about starting to get some reusability going on.
How about
ISRO? Rocket Lab already
ISRO
had their
came
first
out.
recovered booster, and so this upcoming mission, notably, they are not recovering the booster, but they are working towards that, which is amazing. They're the first one, of course, they had the parachute splash down into water, and we got some photos from that. But once they actually are catching these things, that'll be another great moment in bringing down the cost of spaceflight, because they're already a small launcher, and so being able to reuse that vehicle, and then we've seen it now with their own satellite integrated into their second stage, by literally reducing the redundancy there by having flexibility to work. The companies that are having flexibility to work with them to use their communications and thrusters and all that, that'll save money. That'll make it just a more worthwhile and usable vehicle.
Absolutely. And we're even seeing countries turning around to reusability too with Arianespace. That's not just Arianespace. Arianespace is part of the EU's ESA. So as the official launch provider for ESA, that's not just a company looking into reusability. That is a group of countries looking into really funding reusability. And then you have like the Indian Space Research Organization just came out with their decadal this last week, and they said, hey, we need to focus on reusability and amongst other things, obviously, but that's one of their major focuses is developing their own nationally owned reusable rockets. And seeing what they've done in the past, I guarantee within the next year or two, they will have a fully reusable rocket, because they are very quick with their development process and with actually building rockets. Just look at the history of like the PSLV and their current fleet of rockets. Those were developed very rapidly, and yes, there were some accidents along the way, but that was part of their iterative process. And no one died during it, but they're going to do the same thing and develop a new reusable rocket. And it just goes to show that's where the future is. Future is going to be reusability, not using as many rockets, reducing the amount of crap that we put into space and space junk. That's a major thing that not only NASA and other major organizations are looking at, but you're also seeing like the National Space Council recently said the reduction of space junk needs to be our number one priority. And I'm really hoping if Space Force survives what's coming up in the next few weeks, that they make that one of their primary focuses, not just working on defense in space, but also defending space by cleaning it and working on the research that it takes to remove things from orbit in a clean and safe manner, and clean up our space so that we don't have the potential of a Kistler's cascade event in the future.
And that's even more important with all the satellites and especially these Webb webs of satellites, when we're putting so many
Constellations, putting
constellations up there.
so many satellites, especially SpaceX and Amazon has their thing they're going to be doing, and all these other companies want to put thousands of satellites. How do we do that without creating junk beside the satellite?
Exactly. A lot of planning, reuse, and finding a way to actually deal with actually deal with the problems.
Yes, and SpaceX, I think, has kind of led the way because they designed their whole system around these satellites will automatically deorbit themselves, and they did focus in they focused early on how do we deorbit these, how do we deorbit them safely, what are the different deorbit modes. Let's practice with each of these deorbit modes, especially with their version 0.9 satellites. That's what they did, is they deorbited all of them in different manners so they could practice all the different modes of deorbiting. Even if they can't control the satellite, it will automatically come out of the sky within a certain number of years. Awesome.
Good deal. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Awesome. All right. So,
I'm
do we
just
have any
seeing,
this week in space? Oh, what's
I'm
up?
just seeing on Twitter departure that Dragon recovery ship Ghost Searcher is outbound from Port Canaveral for the CRS-21 splashdown tomorrow.
All right.
Excellent.
So that is from Gavin at the Handle SpaceX fleet. He's always updating.
He takes care of fleet services. We love him.
So go check out and give his page a follow, because it is constantly giving us vital information.
Oh yeah, he delivers a lot of vital information, and you get some of the funny in jokes that SpaceX also puts out there. Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, this one's destination is home, and this one's destination is Radio Shack," or something like that. They put weird in jokes in their actual data that they put out, which is really kind of fun and cute. So, all right, do we have this week in space this week, Mr. Shaw?
We do.
Excellent. It's your turn, my brother.
All right. Yeah. So firstly, the first thing I got, there was a couple pretty interesting things I found. The first one's not exactly space related. It's the 26th flight of the X-1B. But that was one of Neil Armstrong's first flights, so I thought I'd add it in. That was in 1958, so a long time ago. The second thing I have is actually the day before January 16th, 1958. It was when the first contract for the Centaur was signed, right? So the company was awarded $7 million to design the upper stage for the Atlas, and they had 1 year to do it. As you guys can probably guess, they were pretty successful since they're still using it today. Moving on, 20 years later, January 16th, 1978, the very first class of astronauts to include females came out, right? So if you don't know, the first 6 female astronauts, Anna Fisher, Shannon Lucid, Judith Resnick, Sally Ride, Rhea Seddon, Catherine Sullivan. All 6 would go on to fly. Of course, Sally Ride was the first 5 years after the astronaut class came out in 1983. In what we had back then, the space shuttle. And some of you guys might be like, space shuttle, we only use rockets. So behind me here is the space shuttle. That's how we used to get back to and from
All
space.
those young kids are wondering, what the heck is that thing behind him?
What did we use back then? It's not SpaceX, what?
You're looking at airplane.
Yeah. So then we're going to come way up into the 2000s, right? On yesterday, January 9th, 2014, the very first Antares rocket in Cygnus spacecraft launched for the first time to deliver cargo to the ISS. They had 8 missions planned back then. They've all been successful since. They're still using those today. The next launch has actually just got scheduled for February 20th up in Wallops. If you have never been there, it's amazing. Also later that year, on January 14th, 2014, President Bush proposed the new space program. You guys, we were talking about the SLS earlier. That was proposed January 14th, 2014. So it's, 6 years later, we're getting there. We're moving along.
Slowly but surely.
It's going to happen. And then January 15th, 2016, the NASA spacecraft Stardust returned safely to Earth near Salt Lake City, Utah, carrying the very first sample ever from a comet. This was actually something I didn't even remember this back then. To me, I found it interesting. Like they landed near Salt Lake City. You know, Boeing's landing in, you know, the middle of the desert out in New Mexico, and you know, Salt Lake City and the surrounding areas. I always thought it was, you know, fairly populated.
It's surrounded by desert, my man.
Yeah, is it? Okay. Yeah, you know, I do Florida stuff, so I don't know.
Like Utah is pretty much like desert and mountains and weird stuff out there. So
great skiing.
Yeah, I went skiing once there. That's all. It was a big city to me. I don't know. Yeah. So also when I was doing some research, I was looking at some animal stuff as well. I was trying to find some cool, you know, because I know there's lots of interesting animal flights. I got nothing this week, but there are some animals coming up. But I did learn just a fun fact for space history. 32 monkeys have been launched to space to date. So
excellent.
That's a lot of monkeying around.
That really is. It really is.
I had to do it, sorry.
Thank you. Oh, that just broke all the tension. Our producer just walked away.
My lens is too wide. I couldn't do that joke if I wanted to.
Oh man,
you can act like you're going downstairs.
Zach, since we missed you last week, do you have any of your work that you were able to share with us at all, or do we need to wait until next week to do that?
Let's wait till next week. I don't have anything ready to pull up.
Right,
put me on the spot.
I'm sorry about that, my man. I just wanted to make sure that we can show everybody's pretty shiny things off.
I appreciate it.
My pretty shiny
I
things.
do have a holding screen real quick.
Nah.
Yes.
It's great.
Can they hear us on the screen now?
Nice blue water.
Greenish.
All
right, and just like you guys are seeing right now, we do have a phone number. If you guys ever have any questions, your kids have any questions that they might want to ask, feel free to call the number, leave us a voicemail. We're more than happy to cover it on the show. Again, we're still trying to find our legs. Future shows obviously are going to be a whole lot more awesome, and we're going to try to do everything that we can to keep you guys entertained and bring the very best in spaceflight news and entertainment for you guys. So again, the number's on the screen now. If you want to give that a call, leave us a voicemail. We'll be sure to answer that live on the air for you.
Absolutely. And unless we have anything from anyone else, I think that makes a pretty good show there.
I did the math. Booster return should be around 2 or 3 tomorrow in the afternoon.
2 or 3 in the afternoon tomorrow. We're looking forward to the pictures, and we were definitely going to highlight those next week on The Rocket Buzz with Next Horizons Spaceflight.